What makes a lesbian? Part 3. It's kind of weird. I think when I make a final video about this, I might have to cut it into 2 videos because some of this stuff has a lot to do with TERFs for me and some of it doesn't have to do with them at all. This doesn't have to do with them at all. So, yeah, another reason why some people would consider me to not be a true lesbian is because I cannot honestly say that I've never been attracted to a man in my entire life. And I just really don't care. Like, I've seen people say that if that's true, you should identify as bisexual. And to me, that's just really stupid. Like, first of all, I just want to say that, like, a straight woman would never be held to this standard. Like, it's considered completely normal and, like, it's considered basically weightless and, like, it has no value. If a straight woman has crushes on other women, if she has, like, one relationship with other women, she's still considered to be straight. On the other hand, if a gay woman, fucking like looks at a famous man in a movie, she's considered to be like less truly gay. And it's a total double standard. But the main thing is just that I think labels are functionally useful. I think that's the point of having labels, as descriptions. If I fell in love with a man, I would not go around describing myself as a lesbian because it would just be confusing to people. At this point, I'm only interested in dating women. When I think about being in a relationship, I think about being with a woman. If I was going to join a dating site, it would be a lesbian site. If I was going to go to like a meeting, like a meetup social type dating group, it would be a women's group, etc., etc. Like, I'm not interested in dating men, and if a man approached me, I would be like, go away, I'm a lesbian. And I don't understand why I should have to identify as bisexual because of experiences that don't really represent how my sexuality usually is. So, when I was about 13 or 14, I really liked to read Bitch Magazine, which is a feminist magazine that I wasn't allowed to read because it had an adverse sex toy in it. So I would go to Borders, which was a bookstore chain that doesn't exist anymore. I would go there after school. I would secretly buy Bitch Magazine and I would like hide it in my school bag, and then I would like hide it in my room and like secretly read it with the door locked. And I mention this because I just want to mention that this was a very old article, but I think it's still relevant today. It was this article in 2002 about quote unquote has-beens, and it was about women who identified as a lesbian for their whole life and then fell in love with a man, and basically how their community had a really negative reaction to them, and like they'd kind of be kicked out of the lesbian community, and they were even still facing homophobia from, like they use the example that like this woman was facing a lot of homophobia from her in-laws because they knew that she had identified as a lesbian and like dated women for her whole life. They still saw her as queer, but meanwhile her lesbian community saw her as, not part of their community anymore and saw her as if she had like changed or like betrayed them or something. And like, I think this really ties into like a way that people still think about lesbians now. Like, I feel like there's this thing where like lesbians are under so much social pressure where people don't believe that it's like really real that a woman could just want to be with other women and not men. And because of that, I think it becomes really, really important to insist that like every lesbian has like no possibility of ever being attracted to men and like never has been, when the truth is that like this isn't the true for the majority of like gay or straight people of any gender. Like, people have exceptions and like ways that their sexuality isn't cut and dry, but when it comes to lesbians, it feels like there's so much pressure that I think people are really defensive of the idea that it is super cut and dry for everyone, when in reality, like, the reason it's a phenomenon, quote unquote has-beens, is because it happens a lot because that's how people's sexuality is, Anyway, so onto my personal experience. Like, when I was in my early 20s, I had a relationship with a man and I was in love with him. And it was an online relationship. I say this because I don't totally know how stuff would have worked out. I think I, was in love with him. But it's also true that I had the experience a few times when I was in high school and college that like I was like, I'm gay. I was identifying as gay. Then I met a guy who I like really liked as a friend and like really wanted to impress and was like really excited about seeing. And I was like, maybe I'm like attracted to this man. Maybe I'm like not as gay as I thought I was. And then like, if anything romantic, if anything physical actually started to happen, or sometimes even if we were just like cuddling or doing something platonic, but it felt sort of like romantic-ish, like, you know, I would suddenly have the sense of like being really just like uncomfortable, feeling like it was wrong for me and I didn't want to be in this situation with a guy at all. And anyway, I'm just saying, with the guy that I was in love with, I don't know if this would have eventually happened if our relationship had worked out. And I don't know, you know, maybe it would have worked out in person for a while, and then at a certain point I would have been like, actually I don't want to be with a guy. Those things could have happened, but I sort of feel this pressure when I'm talking about this to like insist that that relationship was less real and try to like downplay it and be like, now that I know myself better, there's no possibility of that ever happening. Like, for sure. And like, I don't know, to me, I'm just not being honest. It seems somewhat insulting to a relationship that was meaningful and to a person that I was in love with at the time to insist that it wasn't real because because in my mind it like detracts from being allowed to like identify in the way that makes the most sense to me. Another thing I thought of, not a relationship, but just a crush. When I was in college, I used to work at the dining hall as a cashier, so I would see lots of people regularly. I mean, duh, but I guess it just sort of like lent itself to this kind of fun situation where I would get to kind of people watch. And, you know, as somebody who's like kind of shy and doesn't always want to talk to people, but is very interested in people, I really liked getting to like see people again and again and like see them with their friends and sort of get to know people without actually interacting with them that much. And obviously there were several girls that I had a crush on when I was working there. And the person that I was the most attracted to was like a very pretty and feminine person, and I was unable to tell what this person's gender was. And this was before I met the boy that I was in love with, and so I wasn't really even like aware or like thinking that I might be attracted to a guy. And I remember, you know, having the sense of like, oh, I have to find out if this person is a girl or a guy. If they're a girl, then I can be attracted to her, and that's good, and because I am really attracted to her. And if the person's a guy, then I have to like try to turn off those feelings because I'm gay. And like the thing is, I wasn't even like thinking about trying to pursue or date this person. I didn't know anything about this person. This was just like a pretty person that I liked kind of like looking at and thinking like, wow, that person's really attractive. In my mind, like I couldn't even have a crush on this like person that I didn't know without confirming that the person was a woman. And like, yeesh, like it just creeps me out. In retrospect, I find it so creepy that I was like sitting around trying to figure out this person's gender like a detective, because I think it's just kind of a bit creepy. And I guess I feel like people who are, I don't know what the right word is, people whose gender is sometimes hard to guess by seeing them, whatever. It's hard enough to be in that situation without having somebody who's attracted to you freak out over like what it means for their sexuality that they're attracted to you. And I guess I feel grossed out that I did that, even though it was like kind of a private set of like feelings and like things that I was trying to figure out. But like, why did it have to reflect on me that I thought this person was attractive and that it was possible that this person wasn't a woman? I guess I feel like trying to define myself as a real lesbian by other people's standards always seems to involve like downplaying relationships or feelings, or trying really hard to like put people into a box, like, you know, specifically often I guess like non-binary or trans people that I've been attracted to, trying to put those people into a box to like fit them into the definition of lesbian, even if, I mean, obviously for a trans woman that does make sense, but like, you know, if I was attracted to somebody who I thought was a cis woman and then he came out as a trans man and I was still attracted to him, like, then that's something that happens sometimes. And what I need to like, I'm not going to misgender somebody to like convince myself and everybody else that I'm a real lesbian. Like, it makes more sense to just say, hey, there was a one-off and I liked someone who wasn't my usual type, but I'm not gonna identify as bisexual because that doesn't really describe me very well. Like, yeah, okay, I feel like I'm going on about this too long. That's basically what I have to say about this. I'm excited to hear what anybody else thinks or feels about this. I feel like I very often see people talking about this as if it's like absolutely ridiculous for any woman who hasn't had like 100% gay feelings for 100% women people for her entire life, that it's ridiculous for somebody like that to identify as a lesbian. And I mean, go off, I guess. I just don't get it.